Every man walks into the gym with the intentions of building the most aesthetic physique that they possibly can. However, from time to time, you're always going to see those handful of guys that have been going to the gym consistently for about a year or two, but have made little to no progress. So to prevent that from happening to you, I'm going to show you guys the best and only exercises that you're going to need to do to build a jacked aesthetic physique. So to start this off, I'm going to tell you guys the only 2 exercises that if you were to only do these 2, you could build up the muscle group to its full potential. Now, obviously there's more exercises that you can do to build up said muscle group. However, these are going to be the ones that you absolutely need to add to your split. Now, the first one is going to be my favorite muscle group, chest. The first exercise is going to be the incline dumbbell bench. First and foremost, in order to build an aesthetic chest, it has to be full and firm at the bottom with a chiseled shelf at the top. And most of the time, you'll see guys with just the bottom half developed, and that's solely because they never prioritize their incline movement. And I actually fell victim to this. So for years, I always had an overdeveloped lower chest, and I just blamed it on my genetics. However, when I actually started to prioritize my incline movements, that's when I started to see my upper chest come in, and then my chest started to look more aesthetic and more proportionate. Now, when it comes to the actual exercise, the incline dumbbell bench, this is going to be the most effective exercise for your upper chest simply because it's an isolateral movement. Now, I know most people say that the incline barbell bench or the incline Smith machine bench are the best exercises for the upper chest, but I'm going to tell you why they're not. First and foremost, how are you going to fix muscular and strength imbalances if you never train your muscles in the isolateral movement? You just feel more blood and tension rushing to the muscle on iso movements, and your joints and wrists are more mobile when you're able to isolate the muscle groups. With machines or barbells, your joints are fixed into a certain position, whereas with dumbbells, your joints are able to move more freely in their natural pattern, thus making it easier to get that full range of motion so you can build more muscle efficiently. So for example, when I'm benching with dumbbells, I find it way easier to get that mind-muscle connection when I'm able to line up my wrist and my hands with the muscle fibers in my chest and then get that full range of motion. Now, when I say full range of motion, I don't mean actually bringing your hands and your wrists all the way down to your chest. No, you're over contracting. Whenever you do that, you're putting a lot of that tension on your rotator cuff, on your joints and your tendons, rather than the actual muscle itself. You kind of want to bring it down to the point where you're hovering over your chest, and that's one full rep right there. The second best movement for the chest is going to be dips. Now, you guys have to understand that calisthenics is king. Why do you think when you go to the gym, you see very few guys doing calisthenics, and the ones that you actually do seeing calisthenics are jacked and ripped to the gills? It's because calisthenics is one of the most physically taxing and rewarding forms of exercise. And part of the reason why it's one of my favorite chest exercises is because of that free range of motion, like I had mentioned before. Whenever you're able to move your body in its natural patterns and load up some weight on top of that, that's when you're gonna build the most muscle. Dips that are done properly are gonna completely destroy your chest. Now, I know dips are a compound movement. However, you can bias the chest by leaning forward on your dip. Now, as for any movement, you wanna get that 3-second negative on a dip and then push up to get that full stretch and contraction of the chest. Now, dips are a little bit more complex and difficult to get down. However, you can start at any level. So if you're a beginner, you can do the machine assisted dips, and then you can do the body weight dips, and then you wanna move on to either the plate loaded or weighted with a weighted vest. I'm telling you guys, do not sleep on calisthenics. Doing dips and then progressing to the weighted variation completely blew up my chest and then allowed me to bench 315 in the process. All right, time for the shoulders. All right, the first one we have is the dumbbell overhead press. Like I said, guys, you always want to be doing isolateral movements. Now, what makes the dumbbell overhead press so good is because it builds up not only the front delt, but also the side delt, right? Now, when you're doing these, you don't want to have your elbows parallel to your shoulders. You want to give it that 45-degree tilt, and it's going to look almost as if you're doing a chicken wing, right? From here, you're gonna bring the dumbbells down to your chin level, right? To the point where your hands are parallel with your chin, and then you're gonna go straight back up, boom, all the way up to the top, and then come back down to your chin. That's one full rep. A lot of guys do this all wrong, and then they wonder why their shoulders are fucked up later on. Next one. The next one's gonna be the dumbbell lateral raise. Guys, the form is more important than the weight on this one in specific. I see a lot of guys in the gym do this shit all wrong. They either straight arm it or they're doing it like a full chicken wing and they're going like this. They're doing this movement. Guys, this is very simple. Just have your arms at a 45-degree angle at the start and then bring up the dumbbells no higher than your shoulder, right? If you stop it right there, that's gonna get that full contraction in the side delt, and then you wanna slowly come back down. You never wanna rush any of these movements, but especially this one. I find that the seated variation gives you a lot more stability and control, and it allows you to really feel that mind-muscle connection in that side delt. When done properly, these are gonna be a major component in building that V-taper aesthetic. Now, an honorable mention for the shoulders is definitely gonna be the face pulls. The face pulls is gonna allow you to build up that rear delt, which is then gonna contribute to an overall aesthetic back. For the biceps, right, so the seated incline curl. Now, if there was one bicep movement that I could only do for the rest of my life, it would be this one. Now, when you do these, there's a specific way to do them. When you're seated, you don't want to just curl up just like this. You kind of want to curl outwards in an outwards motion, right? So not directly straight and not directly outwards like this. You kind of want to get in the middle of that, at that 45-degree angle. That's not only gonna target the long head, but it's gonna target all three heads of your bicep. Next one. Yep, that's right guys, chin-ups. If you don't believe me, search up the average bicep of a gymnast. Guys, this is why no one does calisthenics. It's the most physically taxing forms of exercise. You can do like 10 reps and already be gassed. The amount of tension you put on your bicep on that negative descent is insane. Once you get good enough to start adding weight to these, I'm telling you, brother, your biceps are gonna blow up. For the triceps, we got skull crushers. Skull crushers are elite for triceps because they hit the long head better than almost anything else. And the long head is what gives the triceps that thick 3D look when you flex. Second one, again, it's gonna be dips. Now I know what you're saying. Dips again? Yes, yes. It's because, guys, like I said, calisthenics is king. Now, for the triceps, whenever you wanna bias the triceps on a dip, you wanna sit straight up just like this. You wanna stand straight up and then do the same exact motion. Whenever you're straight up, it's gonna hit the shoulders as well, but it's gonna mainly prioritize that tricep. So yeah, guys, I wouldn't be stressing calisthenics so much if it wasn't actually effective and it didn't work. Now I get it, a lot of people aren't good at calisthenics, but like I said earlier, you can start from the basics. You can start with a machine assisted movement and then progress your way up all the way to the weighted movement. Now, before I get into the abs, a little disclaimer. If you're not dieting properly and your nutrition isn't optimized, you are not gonna see your abs, right? If you are not between like 15 to 10% body fat, you will not see your abs. However, you can still train them in the meantime. When it comes to the actual movements, you can build a really solid core with just compound movements, but as far as getting them like blocky and really shaping them, these are gonna be the best exercises to do so. Now, the first one we have here is the leg raise. Now, the leg raise is one of the more difficult movements. However, there are machines that have the built-in back pad, so you can have a little bit more support. Now, as far as the actual movement, you wanna kick your feet up all the way to your abdomen and then slowly come down. The slower, the better. The more control you can have on the way down, on the descent, the more you're gonna contract the actual core and then build up more muscle in the process. Next one. Now, the next one's gonna be the windmill. The windmill is gonna be for those obliques. This is one of the more difficult exercises. However, if you can't do a windmill, you can do a knee tuck with a twist, right? The twist is also gonna activate those obliques. So now when you do these, control is everything on this movement. If you are not controlled, you're gonna put a lot of tension on your lower back and none on the obliques. So yeah, guys, the exercises for the abs are pretty basic. And like I said earlier, if you're not between like 10 to 50% body fat, none of this is really gonna matter. However, if you're in that range, doing these and your compounds will for sure get you a nice aesthetic core. All right, guys, we have to change locations really quick, but we're gonna keep moving. So now we have the back, which is one of the muscle groups that complete the aesthetic look. First exercise, pull-ups. I'm gonna say it time and time again, guys. Calisthenics is the way to go if you truly wanna build an aesthetic physique. Really think about it. You're always gonna find like 3 to 5 guys fighting over the lat pull down machine and fighting over who got next, but you're never gonna see that many people on the pull-up bar, and it's for a reason. Guys, pull-ups, again, with every other calisthenics workout, is one of the most physically taxing and physically demanding exercises. So on top of it being a compound movement, it's really gonna favor and bias the lats a little bit more. And when done properly, you're gonna feel that full stretch in the lats as you contract and let go. So training your lats alongside the side delts is really gonna give you that V taper look and make you appear as wide as possible. Another good thing about pull-ups is it's one of those calisthenics movements where you can load up a lot of weight while still prioritizing your form and getting that full range of motion. T-bar row. So the reason why I went with the T-bar row and not a regular seated row is because with the T-bar row, you're at an angle with a chest support to where you can not only target the middle of your back and your rhomboids, but also the traps and a little bit of your lats. So that's gonna be a lot better than a regular seated row for that reason. If your gym doesn't have a T-bar, you can simply just do a regular landmine row or a chest supported row. Just some tips and things to note when training. Ideally, you wanna be between 3 to 4 sets per exercise. You don't want to do any more than that because that's going to overstress the muscle and then lead to a catabolic phase. And you don't want to do anything less than that because 2 sets simply is not enough to build enough muscle. 2 sets isn't enough simply because, guys, you have to at least warm up with at least about 85% of your working set first and then get into your working sets, right? So you don't want to just do 2 sets and that's it. As far as the resting time in between sets, you shouldn't be resting for more than 2 minutes per set. Guys, whenever you're idling too long, whenever you're taking too long to get from set to set, your muscles start to get cold, you're taking away from the pump and you're taking away from the actual amount of muscle you're gonna be able to build. Now, one thing that I've noticed that is very important is form. Form over everything. Do not progress into a new weight or progressively overload if your form was not properly executed. Yes, you should be progressively overloading and lifting with heavy weight. However, when your form isn't properly executed, you're not doing the proper form, you're gonna compromise your joints and your ligaments and your tendons, and you're gonna increase the risk of an injury. Now, form is also very important to build muscle. I see it a lot in the gym. A lot of guys are not using the proper form when they're working out, and that's another reason why they stay small for a very long time. Guys, also in my program, my one-on-one program, I see a lot of guys use the wrong form when they first get into the program. So the very first month is literally just focusing more so on the foundation and the actual form. I'm telling you guys, I've had guys in there that say they've been lifting for 2 to 3 years, and when I check their form out, it's horrible, right? So literally, on average, the very first month on every guy that I onboarded to my program is literally just correcting their form. Right? So a lot of the movements are very basic, but we're just solely focusing on the form so they can then progressively overload and then move on to the heavier weight. So yeah, guys, form is so very important. Always videotape yourself when you work out to make sure that you're doing the proper form. I'm telling you guys, if your form is not done properly, you will not build muscle. So addressing going till failure, yes, you should be going till failure occasionally though, right? So I'll go to failure usually when I progressively overload. So like every 2 weeks, I'll go to a failure on my last exercise and the last few sets of the muscle group that I'm working. So for example, if I'm doing chest, right? And obviously I have 2 exercises for my chest. Say for example, I'm doing the incline dumbbell bench, I'm doing the dips. On my dips, I'm gonna go push it to, failure. But on my incline dumbbell bench, I'm not gonna go to failure. I'm gonna leave at least 1 rep in reserve because I need that extra energy to do my dips. No matter what anybody tells you guys, there's no real reason to take it to failure on each and every single set and each and every single exercise. Now, don't get it twisted. You should be training with high intensity. Intensity is almost everything when it comes to exercising and building muscle. You should be using a lot of intensity, right? Don't half-ass your workout, but also don't push your muscle to exhaustion each and every single set. So yeah, guys, that was the end of the video. I hope this helped a lot of you guys out. And if you're still stuck on building your dream physique, whether it be accountability, nutrition, exercise, form, whatever it is, I will work with you one-on-one to help you jump over that hurdle and actually get to your dream physique. Just click the link in the description to book a call, and I'm gonna see if you're qualified to work with me one-on-one. But until next time, guys, I will see you in the next one.